Thank you. Perfect. So we've got our last, but definitely not the least, talk for the APJ region, and usually, we do have an amazing talk. So we do have Bartosz Pietrucha, who is a software engineer and also the founder of Dev Academy. He has taught 1,000 of developers around the world, has spoken at many international conferences. And he's also worked with a lot of great companies like Credit Suisse, UBS, and I think the list goes on. And today he's going to be talking to us about 7 must-know steps to making modern web apps ultra secure. So I'm going to bring Bartosz on board. Welcome to the show. Thank you for speaking at DevSecOn.
Hello and welcome. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, and we're looking forward to this talk. If you did want to just share your slides, we'll pop them here, and then we'll let all the listeners sort of listen to your talk as well.
Awesome. Let me try to share the screen and let's see how it goes.
Also, just while you're bringing that up, just a note for anyone watching this at home, and we do have quite a few people who are joining us live. Thank you for all the questions that you're bringing on. Keep them coming, and also, if you do want to have conversations or connect with any of the speakers after this, they've got their socials, but also you can go and join the DevSecOn Discord as well. But we do have the slides here, so I'm just going to pop it on, and looking forward to this. Take it away, Bartosz.
Okay, hello and welcome. My talk is called 7 Steps to Ultra Secure Web Apps. And frankly, I think that we are all about security in web and in general over the internet as software engineers and different experts in the field. And I would like to give you a high overview of what I find extremely useful when thinking about building and designing a systems, especially web systems, in a secure fashion. So my name is Bartosz, and thank you for the nice introduction. As already mentioned, I've been working in the field for over 10 years for many different companies, master degree, and recently I became a Snyk ambassador, and I run Dev Academy, and Web Security Academy is one of the projects under Dev Academy. So we are pretty global with students almost around the world and every continent. So it's pretty amazing. This is just one slide to give a little bit of credibility. I've been also doing a lot of education around like another guys, so all of that is done. And let's start with the steps. I have 7 steps, and in my opinion, the very first is to actually understand the web security model, because we can code stuff, we can use libraries, Passetto and JSON Web Tokens, but if we don't build the fundamentals understanding of where are we actually located, then it's going to be hard for us to continue and design and think about security in the first place. So there are things like same origin policy, content security policy, sub-resource integrity, cross-origin resource sharing, hashes, nonces, signatures, and all those things together actually tie a landscape on which we actually operate, designing, making decisions, on what tools to use, on how to implement things, what are the lurking dangers actually we need to take care of. So, same origin policy is fundamental, which actually then tells us more about things like course. And then, a lot of developers are throwing out the hair because, there are errors in the background. And, it is the first thing you just Google and then you look for the quick solution. But unless you actually know why the things happen the way they happen, and it's going to be always a shortcut. So first, very important step, get all those things, play with it, make some hacking, make some examples, try to break things in, and then once you feel comfortable, you can move on. And the next step that I would like to say here is actually learn about common security vulnerabilities, because there are common, already known techniques that actually allow to break, and they happen very often, even in 2022. And there is a nice document called OWASP Top 10 from the OWASP organization. Is Open Web Application Security Project. And they actually, from time to time, update the document. and they classify 10 security risks. And let's start from like one which is still valid but extremely deadly, and cross-site scripting. And you might say, no, it's 2022. Why do we still think about it? Because it's still a real thing. I mean, we know Angular, we know React, and we know front-end frameworks that take care of all the sanitization. But still, in my opinion, relying only, okay, you know what? Angular prevents from cross-site scripting. I should not know about this, nothing. But if you have some advanced features and some snippet of the code via, I don't know, reflected CSS, XSS, or stored XSS creeps into your code, then an attacker can steal your cookies, for example. Or if you have HTTP secure cookies, maybe you have some critical information in your local storage or session storage, and then using the cookies, then they may impersonate you, and then they, if you have e-commerce, maybe steal money and do some harm. So and practically, if you understand, it's not that hard just to understand, okay, I need to make sure that any other code which I somehow allow to run in the context of the website, which brings me to the first step, that there is something which is a secure context of your website, then I'm going to be practically trying to prevent this kind of issues. So we are on the basis, and now we continue our steps. And this one is pretty crucial because it drives then the subsequent technical steps that are extremely important, which I call choose a proper authorization architecture. And the decision has to be made mostly based on non-functional requirements. What I mean by that is, first of all, there is one perspective from the origin or deployment point of view, and another one is from the state perspective. So these are non-functional requirements, and they drive the subsequent decisions. So from the origin or deployment perspective, you may have so-called same origin websites. You have your origin, your domain, your website is available, a backend and front end and all the services under the same domain and port and origin. So basically, the user makes a request and receives a website from single origin, and we can actually make this nice context, use cookies. For example, in this context, the cookies are perfect. And then you may have set the cookies to be secure, HTTP only, and hardening the session information inside this context. Another case is that, okay, but I have a distributed deployment. I cannot use cookies because there is origin boundary, which does not allow me to pass the cookie between the domains. I have an authorization server, I have an application, I have API. So I cannot actually use cookies because they would not be able to be read by the different domains. So you need to come up with another approach. It might be some token that programmatically, not by the browser cookie mechanism, is going to be passed through. And then, yes, it may be HTTP header, for example, and then you pass through between your application is going to be juggling between different domains. So this is another perspective that you need to think about your authorization architecture. Another perspective, I mean, I'm saying all of this to make you aware that it's not one fits all. There are different contexts and different considerations. And another perspective is a state one. So you may have, as simple as that, a user state. Every piece of information about the login user, permissions, and stuff is living on the server side. And the only thing that jumps between the server and the client is the session ID. Right? So basically, pretty simple, but again, it depends on what you need to do. I mean, is it possible to store the state on the server side? And then I'm going to jump into one of the Randall's best topics, I guess, is using JOTS or Pasero. And this is a different perspective on the context, because now you may be in extremely distributed system or any other constraint that says, you know what? It's hard for me to issue a server-side session. Maybe in this case, I would start with Pasero or JSON token, and I will put something inside of the token and then put it into the client. And then, I can make it a little bit more stateless, and I have to care about many different aspects, like Randall recently mentioned in the previous talk. So then you can put the user ID and other stuff that you need to maintain between the different HTTP hops to pass to the client and the server. So it's, as I mentioned, it's not that one fits all. Each of the different architectures is actually a trade-off between security, business requirements, technical feasibility, usability, and so on. So you can actually look at these different perspectives and choose wisely for your system. Number 4, once we are progressing with this process, you may actually consider a secure role-based, permission-based authorization implementation. So basically, you write an application. Let's stick to 2022. You have SPA or some other application, and then some API in the backend. So you have different roles. And those roles represent the set of permissions. They may share an account, for example, and different roles log into the same account. It may be, for example, Mike, who is the owner, and Paul, who is the reader. So you can imagine that Mike can only read stuff, and Paul can read and write because he has the role of reader. So there are a couple of pinpoints to take into consideration while designing such a system. So first of all, we need to consider domain modeling for multi-account system, how we actually put stuff into the system from the domain perspective, how we put things together that our system is actually capable of implementing the features that actually we want them to have, from the requirements perspective. Then how we manage those permissions, right? How we design a secure REST API, how we make sure that there is a REST endpoint or GraphQL endpoint that actually is secured from the role perspective, that it's not only the UI but also the backend, because we may use any other client in the place of SPA that is going to make a request based on the specific requirements. And you may totally bypass the things that are implemented in the front end. Then you may have this user of object if you are using session ID, how to put stuff and then pass it back and forth between the client and customer. Things like middlewares, interceptors, routing guards, how to put those things together. Components as well. From the front end side, you would like to see particular parts of the system based on the permission or the role. So if you build like a component-based SPA, then different components have different permissions based on what the user is actually eligible to do, and much more. So this is like number 4. Number 5, we have some cool stuff in our toolkit, but it's not enough. Then we would like to add additional layers, and I will just name a few of them, like two-factor authentication or multi-factor, like one-time passwords in the form of SMS, for example, iris scan, fingerprint. Basically, it's another factor that makes the system expect not only the username and password, but a second factor, because password might be compromised. And you will be surprised how easy it is to implement OTP with, for example, Google Authenticator that allows you to actually generate a one-time password, which is time-based. So, for example, it may be valid only for 30 seconds. And then as soon as you receive it, and actually, this is a cool part. There are systems that allow you to generate OTPs offline. You don't actually need to connect your device, like phone, to actually get a valid one-time password that is going to be accepted on the backend. So it's pretty insane, because you may think that, okay, when sending an SMS, I need to have a wire connection of my phone. But with some implementations, which are decent and used widely of OTPs, you don't even need to connect somewhere. It's going to be using some cryptographic magic to generate valid OTPs on your smartphone. So two-factor authentication. then you may have something like login throttling. I bet you have seen that if you log into some decent website and try to type your password several times in a wrong fashion, it's going to say you need to wait because it's too many wrong trials that you actually executed, and we don't want to risk that you are actually an attacker trying to brute force or guess the password. So login throttling, like you can just block the trials to prevent brute forcing dictionary attacks or credential stuffing attacks like that. So you may want to think about it that there are people who may try to use your system in a way that might be threatening to the system security. And then additional sanitization and validation must be a must, both on the front end and especially on the back end. We don't want to allow the system to accept every, possible input, because it might be crafted exploit or stuff that the system may actually undesirably execute or make some harm. So proper sanitization and validation of the input is a must, especially when we think about the system that is front-end and back-end decoupled. The back-end is a must place to actually make some additional sanitization and validation for sure. Then we have logging. I mean, this is a also important aspect, but there are different aspects of that. You may start with a simple one, like access level logging, and which is pretty simple. You just need to use some interceptor or middleware, and you log every HTTP request with timestamp, URL, and API. So this is like the front. But also, if you go deeper in the application, it's good to make the system accountable of the events from the application perspective. So you need to think about what are the meaningful application level events for the system accountability, like who, when, and what did in the system. Like, okay, who logged in, who registered, who made a transaction, what are the details actually around this event in the system, that if we would like to look inside and make some retrospective, we can actually know what happened and we can make some decision based on the analysis. So this is a different level of logging what happens in the system from the application perspective. And then finally, test your application security. There are different tools. You may test it from different perspectives, but since I'm saying from the developer perspective, you can use Snyk as one of the tools that actually allows you to look inside the application security from the shift left perspective. So we are putting a lot of security considerations back in the development process, not on the very right hand side, which is security audit or penetration testing, which happened very lately in the development process. So basically that's it. I needed to be extremely fast, so but the topic is very deep, and I will just have 3 slides inviting you to join one of our communities like Web Security Academy, where you can actually learn everything from the described steps in an online bootcamp with the community, meetings and awesome materials, 12-week Q&A sessions, 12 weeks of support, closed community, captions, lifetime access, and certificate of graduation. And the cool part is regarding new things that we are doing, I'm about to release a brand new module featuring Snyk from the developer's perspective that explains to you the DevSecOps for developers, and also things like static code analysis, static application security analysis, that we are going to be hacking in the application that we use for learning. And this will end up soon in Web Security Academy. And nice, this is my last slide, because I'm really happy to be hacking in the space. And if you go to httpscanner.com, it's going to be a free tool. It's going to be a free tool to help you scan your HTTP security. So, there are things like HTTP security headers, like content security policy, all the things that I also mentioned in the beginning that contribute to web security model. We are working with my team, UX designers, developers, conceptuals, and researchers, and me on the brand new tool that is going to be the 2022 Go for web security for free to help you inspect what is happening in your website. http://scanner.com. So for now, there is if you open this, you will see the poll, the survey that I need to gather as much information as possible to create some useful tool. You can jump on our community server or whatever you like, but this insights will help us create something free, something cool, something useful. And thank you very much. Visit http://scanner.com or Web Security Academy, or jump to some socials. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. That was really, really good. I think I'm definitely looking forward to, what you're going to be doing with, at Snyk, the Web Academy thing that you're going to be building. I think that's going to be really exciting. So I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And I liked how you said that, not everything, one size does not fit all. I think you're so right there. And, just calling that out was really, really important. So definitely love the talk. Also, you're getting a lot of love from all the live streams that we've got. I think we've got Liren, who has mentioned that he thought it was a great rundown of the important web security concepts. So thank you for the talk.
Also, I will give a huge shout out to the work you've done with Web Security Academy, because it is so good. And I will vouch for it. Like, if any of you are trying to get better at web security, like, you will not find a better teacher than the guy in front of you right now. So go sign up for the next session. When is the next session going to start, by the way?
I mean, so far, we are kind of like being ongoing. So I mean, it's different when you have a session and when you have the ongoing. So far, when you jump, you are I call it a self-paced mode, but we have all the things like sessions, meetings, and stuff like that. So I mean, it's not like so far it's not scheduled. You can watch on your own, but we have like monthly calls, meetings, and Q&As like being held periodically, more like on demand, rather than forcing you to make a group of people working together. So it's basically ongoing without much of a constraint on our side so far. But sometimes from time to time we would like to make like a group going, but it's not planned any by means this year. So feel free to jump on self-paced mode.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, if you're watching this, go give it a go. It's amazing. You will not regret it.
Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming and, sharing your knowledge with us. And, as Randall said, it sounds like, you've got a lot more to give to the community. So definitely do follow Bartosz and all the awesome work that he's doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.